Hello, welcome back, everybody, to another year of the Sunday Podcast.
I'm Ollie Lam.
And I'm Matt Seddon.
Back in 2025 for our 5th season. You can expect more of this.
He's claiming that he was ill before the semi-final, whatever. But, you know, I just feel like at that point he was just looking for attention.
And some of this.
You normally say, no human is limited. So I can't limit myself, or I can't just say I can do.
As well as event coverage around all the major races on the UK circuit.
And if you're a fan of the pod, please give us a rating and review on your preferred podcast streaming service.
And if you want to stay up to date with all the latest news, give us a follow on Instagram at Sunday Podcast.
As always, thanks for listening. See you next time. And we hope you enjoyed the episode.
Okay, hello, welcome back to our first weekend roundup of the year. Obviously, Valencia 10K went down yesterday and some crazy results, particularly on the men's side for the Brits. So we've got to get our teeth stuck into those, don't we, mate?
Oh boy, do we. Super impressive. I mean, I think we expected it a little bit. We knew there was going to be a few fireworks. Who was going to break that British record? Because I think basically we had 3 or 4 guys capable of doing it. I guess, a lot of people maybe would have seen Rory breaking that record. I think someone we probably didn't expect to see run so well was Big Charlie Wheeler, man. Like, he was only a few seconds behind and inside Farah's and Emil's record himself. So I think we got to give hats off to him and serious credit there as well, because that was a huge run for a guy who claimed he wasn't even tapering. But that's a Wheeler comment.
Yeah, so it is, and I'll probably respond to that. Maybe he should stop tapering altogether then, shouldn't he? But I think yeah, you bang on, mate. And I think it will go under the radar because Rory ran quicker, but I also think maybe that's good for him at this time of year, obviously coming off definitely a cross-country season that I know he's a bit disappointed with, not making that European team. I think it's be probably better for him to almost not have such a big, I guess, performance that everyone's talking about this weekend just gone, and just to get himself sorted for the track, I reckon.
Yeah, I think you talk about that cross team and it shows you how deep, you know, our Liverpool team was as well, because these guys will come out in Valencia and they've run some mega times. I think Rory, I kind of, when he ran the European cross, I mean, at Liverpool cross, there was kind of question marks, right? But as soon as he did have illness and stuff, but as soon as he went to the Euro cross and competed, I think on that day, he was like 10 seconds behind Almgren, and he was competing with these guys. I think he was right behind Isaac Kimeli as well. And these were guys, I mean, Almgren just went around 26:53, you know, European record. He was incredible. And I think when he was competing so closely amongst these guys for a lot of that race, he only faded it right at the end. And it was a flat course, and it was a relatively, I guess, fast course as well. You kind of thought, well, if you can live with that pace, he must be in pretty serious kind of 10K road, 5K road shape, and obviously on the track as well. And so, yeah, I mean, he kind of got what he deserved. He's in fine form. And I would say Valencia, as fast as it is a difficult time of year to come out cooking after the sort of festive period, I think is quite challenging. And I think obviously it wasn't Jack Rowe's day yesterday. You know, I know he was sort of traveling quite a lot over that festive period and perhaps a little bit out of routine when it comes to training and stuff. And so to be able to produce that early January, as fast as Valencia is, I think it's quite something, because presumably now, I don't know for sure, but presumably these Hoka guys and a lot of these guys will now head up to altitude and prepare for a Boston 5K, a Boston 10K. And yeah, I think Rory's time there does indicate, you know, certainly sub 13:10 on the track, and then you start to flirt with, can he box off that qualifying time, which is 13:01, by the way.
Yeah. And that's something we've got to talk about as well. It's not just that 5K qualifying time, it's that 10K qualifying time, because I think what must have been 3-4 years ago when they started saying we're going to allow road times to qualify for track championships, we were sort of saying, the way the roads are going, this might be athletes' best routes in. Route. Yeah, but looking at it now, like you mentioned, that 13:01 for the 5K and 27 flat for the 10K, road or track, that is... They are ridiculous standards, aren't they?
Yeah, like I said, it's the same time overall. I think this is why we are starting to see a lot of people gravitate towards the 5K, because when it comes to the championships, they obviously allow more athletes in. So when you look at 13:01 is a standard, but they allow 42 to go to the championships, and so they'll go through those world rankings and the road to Tokyo, just like they went through the road to Paris. And so I think you have a much better chance of going in the 5K. You could be virtually the same athlete. but the 10K just allowing 27 athletes to get in is just awfully difficult. And so I think that's why we're just seeing a lot of Europeans, and you get a lot more opportunities over the 5,000, which I think, like you say, you can go and run it indoors for one. You can go do it at Boston. But then, if you don't ticket in Boston, there's a lot of fast track 5Ks you can kind of scout out and attack. Whereas the 10, you've still got, and that's what's scary is, he's just run a British record on the road, and he's still 38 seconds off the World Championship qualifying mark. Which is scary. But then to put it into perspective, he finished 15th in this race, and there was obviously a lot of people missing who would be. I mean, there was no Americans there. And you think there was, I guess, the Kenyans and Ethiopians. They kind of make up for the ones you'd see at the championships, but there was no Kiplimo, there was no Cheptegei. And once you start to add in these guys that you'd expect to see in the 10, people like Grijalva and stuff like that, then you're like, oh, actually, you're right. You do bump down the pecking order a little bit, and you're right on the cusp. So it's going to be an interesting summit. It'll be huge if someone runs inside 27 minutes. It'd be absolutely. I think that would be a massive achievement, because 13 minutes, I think, has been proven that it is doable. Especially with the likes of Boston. But to go run 26 something, qualify for the world, I mean, that will be massive.
Yeah, and obviously no Highgate this year, and not to say that Highgate's always been known for its electric times, but I think just one less race that's accessible for the Brits. I think obviously there's going to be something instead, but it's not going to be quite the same. But maybe it's the time for that, because I think you mentioned that there's a lot of athletes, there's a lot of depth. You've got that whole Hoka group. If they are going to go and run 26 something, it's going to take a few of them going together and saying, we're going to really push and target this one race, and go and do it. I hope it's not. I think we had a few issues last year with the Boston, where a few athletes were saying, oh, I'm doing this one. Then they go and
there's about 3 different Bostons, wasn't there?
Yeah, and did a different meet, and there's a bit cloak and dagger. Quite like all the Brits to actually say, no, we're all going to go and run this Peyton Jordan or whatever it is. Commit to doing it, and commit to going after going and getting a time. And look, might take 8 of them to be in the race, but 1 or 2 of them might do it,
Yeah, that's the advantage. I think that's the advantage they got when they got a group like that as well. And obviously now you're looking at the Wheelers, by the way, searching for a coach, aren't they? So that'll be exciting to see where they end up. I know they've had a few discussions. So look forward to releasing that in a few weeks to see where they go. But yeah, that's the track season. I guess now it'll be all eyes on their next move and where people go off the back of Valencia. Will it just be a one-off cracking run? Everyone runs fast in Valencia, and will, I guess, the rest of the indoor season or the track season not quite live up to that hype? Definitely leading the way at the moment. A few people that we should mention further back, Yi-Dog 2807. I've heard he was a little ill as well and under the weather over Christmas. So to just come out and be running 2807, I think shows he's in great shape when it comes to the marathon and what he might do in April. Phil Sessman as well, 2810. I couldn't believe it. That was he said on his post, that was a lifetime best for him. After a good while, after 2019 lifetime best. So Zach Mohammed, 2813, Alfie Manthorpe, 2814, Mark Scott, 2816. I mean, just heaps of guys in the low 28s. Crossy, 2824, James Gormley, 2833, and Jacob Allen, 2835 as well. So, our top 10 there, just crowning off with some, to have 10 guys, 2830 in that ballpark and below is stellar, I think. The UK endurance scene is certainly boosting up. I think what was very encouraging for us as fans with someone like Rory Leonard is you do see him as someone who's very much homegrown. Like, I know he went out to Oklahoma for, was it 18 months or 2 years? Maybe not even that. I can't quite remember. But yeah, he's done a lot of his training in the UK. And he's just done hard miles, and he's done a lot of the training with UK guys as well. He hasn't been to some fancy, in some American group. Like when Mark Scott was flying and sort of running these sort of times and stuff, it was like the Bowmans, and that was like a place beyond that no one could kind of get near. Whereas Leonard, you're just like, yeah, he's done all his hard yards in the UK pretty much. He's done a few font camps, and like he's able to run that time. And so I think for the other guys, that's encouraging.
Yeah, and Leonard's one of those athletes as well. I think we spoke to him about this when we had him on the pod a couple of years ago now, probably, that he's literally got a British vest at every single age group. Like every single year, pretty much, he ticks one off. Like whether it's under 18s, under 23s, whatever it is. He's obviously got his senior ones on the cross, but history tells us that he's then going to go get one outdoors on the track as a senior in the next year or so, because that's just what he's done throughout his career. So,
well, you mean, yeah, obviously Euros and stuff, but he'll, yeah.
I mean,
to go to a global,
next one.
A global champs for sure. So, I mean, I think it's worth focusing on the front end of that race as well, because something which was super impressive about Almgren, if the splits are correct, they up front they had an insane negative split. Almgren ran 13:10 for his second 5K, 13:43 through halfway, and finishing up with 26:53. I mean, that on the roads as well is, I think it was a little bit windy. The kind of first 5K, that back straight bit in Valencia. But still 13:10, I was like, Jesus, man, that is something to still end up with that 26:53. So up at the front, it was fairly, and you could tell by, when you're watching it, there was a massive group. I mean, the likes of Rory and Jack was still in that group for a good few sort of 4-5K. I think just before 5, they started to drop off a bit. But I mean, when we spoke to him, he obviously got injured in the summer, and I think you're looking at him and you're going, Grant Fisher has been able to get medals at a major championships, and you're going, could this guy do it from Europe in the 10? Because I sort of saw him as more of a 5K runner, especially stepping up from the 800, but his half marathon and his 10s are starting to show that maybe he will just look to compete in the 10,000 and really attack that, because he has got an insane kick as well.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, the kick you need for the 10 isn't as good as the kick you need for the 5. And like you say, you've got a lot of guys.
But yeah, he's not going to beat Jakub in a sprint finish, is he? I don't think so, anyway.
Yeah, you got a lot of guys in that 5, like you say, not just British guys, but around the world that are targeting that 5K. And I think there's a lot more variables. Whereas in the 10, if you are strong enough to be there, you give yourself a chance.
Yeah, he's going to be there right till that final lap, and then it's what can you do? And with a 1:45.800, that's the fastest finisher in a 10K we've seen in quite a number of years. So I think, again, he's someone who is going to be featuring in that 10,000 in Tokyo. But yeah, just delivering again. And after having a pretty horrendous injury last summer, he's come back, and I know he has been training with Jakub a good bit, hasn't he, in Sierra Nevada and stuff. So I mean, mate, we got to pan over to the women as well, and their results in Valencia, because I think there was 4 sub-30, which it wasn't quite the fireworks of last year, but still, just the fact that it's just regular occurrence now. Women just break.
That's what I was going to say, mate. You say it's not the fireworks, and I think that just shows how far we've come. That we're not even thinking it's crazy that 4 women are going sub-30 anymore, because we've come to expect it, and it is. It's just mind blowing. Obviously, not quite as many Brits over on the women's side as we had in the men's, in terms of kind of getting into those top times. But Amy Eloise, obviously 31:15, and then Jess Judd as well, 31:54. So good to see her back after some time away, really, from a sport. It was last year that she ran that incredible time in Valencia, and we thought she was going to go on to have her best summer yet, but obviously didn't see much of her.
Yeah, I know, and this is, I think it's difficult, isn't it? All it takes is a little hiccup in your spring camp, and to kind of refine that form is challenging. But yeah, I think on the women's side, as good as those runs were, it's, you just can't help but look at the standards and think 30:20, and just be like, wow, yeah, it's going to be so difficult for athletes to kind of get near those. And it's the same problem the men are going to have in trying to, where do you find that qualifying time? But then you look at 14:50 for the women, and you're like, well, we have heaps who can break 15. Yeah. And so, we could just have a scenario where no one really even bothers aiming for the 10, and they just try and get after that 5K. Even someone like Jess Judd, you're starting to think, like 30:20, like for her to sort of get down into 30:15s and stuff, is she better off at just targeting the 14:50 5K and having a good championship run out? We know she's a good championship racer as well. But what's a shame is it was only 2 years ago in Eugene she finishes 8th. At the world champs in
That's
the 10.
The thing, mate. I think there's got to be and I know a lot can change in that time, but it just seems that there's got to be a better way of doing it. We know that times aren't the be all and end all, and they don't equate to to the finishing times of the champs. Otherwise, we wouldn't bother, right? We just give you a world champs medal for finishing top of the rankings. And I don't know how they do. I don't know what the answer is, but there's got to be a better way with these ranking points of sorting out who qualifies.
Yeah. Well, we're only talking about. I mean, these standards that we've mentioned are the world athletic standards, and British athletics. I looked today. I can't see any. They haven't released their Tokyo selection policy yet. So for 2025, so they may have that thing where the 10K is a little bit slower. It's 27:10 or 27:15, like it has been, and 30:30 or 30:45 or whatever it was as well. So there may be a little bit of leeway, but yeah, mate. I mean, that was Valencia. It was huge. It was what we expected. As far as the race panned out, a few numbers. I think 148 men broke 30 minutes, which again just shows the depth at this event. All the Brits performed really well. We had a lot of PBs. I think there was 8 national records as well. I mean, Labalu obviously ran a national record. There was obviously Almgren as well, British record, and Ephraim Gidey obviously ran an Irish record. There was a heap of national records that went down too. And I think another 10K that people should maybe put on their list is that another one in Spain is that Laredo 10K, and it's usually in March, but it's in May now. It's May the 25th, which is usually that Highgate weekend. And I mean, Kajeltra and Algawi have both run like 26:30 something on that course. It's similar vibes to Valencia. It's very, very fast. And, that could be a possible shout for people, but I'm not sure if it's quite as deep as Valencia. You're sort of running with 20 guys all hovering around the 27:30 mark, let's say. So, but
this is my point about all the Brits just clubbing together and saying, look, we're going to go run that and we're going to go after the standard together. Because enough of them who want it or should want it that
I also think there is like Valencia is still at like 9:30 in the morning, which is pretty early to be hammering a 10K. Like, I do think if Valencia was at 8 o'clock at night, people would go quicker, like a track race. They're just more alert, they're awake more if they got a bit more fuel in them, but maybe not. But yeah, so great running, and I guess we can. There was a few other results that we should talk about. Ines Fitzgerald, European indoor 3,000 meter record of 8:48 under 20. That is, she beat Torgertson's the Danish girls record from last year, who ran 8:50. Ines Fitzgerald 8:48. I mean, that's second Brit all time. Zola Budd's ahead of her with 8:28, which is just ridiculous. But faster than Paula Radcliffe outdoors, Amelia Greco, like those, Jess Judd, like those sorts of athletes who went on to do great things. And I think that went unnoticed because she was just outside that European indoor qualifying time of 8:48.0 as well, which I think she's going to try and get this weekend in Sheffield.
Yeah, and so she should, right? Like, she's close enough. It would be great, I guess, stepping stone championship for someone like her to go to a European indoors. And you got to think with maybe another race and a bit of luck, then you're easily finding that bits and pieces from a second. So yeah, like we say, she just continues to impress, doesn't she? She's someone that, since I guess people becoming aware of her a couple of years ago on the circuit, she's just continued to improve, continued to show why there's noise around her and her training.
Yeah, and I think as juniors, sometimes it's easy for them to sort of just see out. It seems like she wants to attack an indoor season, and sometimes she's not someone you would put as like, someone who's going to do, it'd be easy for her to just carry on the cross and just kind of sweep up the cross season and then get ready for track. But this looks like an attack at going to a senior championship, mate.
That's it. And they could just sweep those junior champs as well. Like, you could just think, she's under 20, but she's at the level now where, if you can make a seniors now, make the most of it. Don't go waiting and be like, I've got a few more years. Obviously compete in a junior champs as well if it allows it, but why not strike now when you're flying?
I think it's all about experience as well, isn't it? Going to a British indoor champs and actually trying to, I think it's a different set of nerves and a different race when you're trying to get a spot, finish top 2.
Yeah, she raced last year, I think, didn't she? And was kind of, not really in contention. So I think I believe that was her first, because we must have spoken to her just before, so that would have been her first senior trials, if you like. So, but it'd be interesting to see how she gets on, because I think we probably back her to run a time, but then when you come up against some of these experienced senior athletes like you had in Nuttall's, Rizzy Fries. Be interesting to see where she's at.
There were a few other good results from the BMC in Cardiff. Archie Davis 7:57. That was strong. Holly Dixon 4:15. That was a PB for her. So there was a good few results, and Innes Fitzgerald by far and away the kind of outstanding athlete at that meet. And then we moved to I guess BMC in Sheffield this weekend. I think I've seen rumours. Will Barnacle, Tamer, going to have a run out. Tina Crawker's doing James at Murray. So I think we're now starting to see athletes who are just looking to focus on the indoors, with obviously that British champs clashing with the National Cross on the same weekend. You have to pick one or the other, right? And so we're starting to see people who are potentially... Europeans is achievable for a lot of athletes. 7:43 indoors for the men, 8:48 for the women, 3:37 and 4:08. And you think some of the races on offer, it's doable, but world indoors is 7:31 and 8:33 for the 3K, and it's just, I know Josh Kerr's defending champion, but even someone like him is going to find it fairly difficult to go run 7:31. Like, he's going to have to be on his A game to go run 7:30 or below indoors.
Does he have to though? He doesn't. Yeah.
No, he doesn't have to, right? Because he's defending champ. But what I'm saying is the standards for indoors are ridiculous for the Worlds, which again is at the end of March in Nanjing, China. Is that one that was supposed to be in 2020? I think being postponed for 5 years. And so and obviously we are just going to have a very, very small team there.
Yeah, I think you mentioned everyone's kind of picking the indoors. I think we've said it for years, mate. The NCAA season, it's the one that makes most sense, right? In terms of like maximizing your opportunities to make teams, having a bit of differential throughout the season, like having, I guess, targeting Eurocross, then targeting the European indoors, and then looking at your outdoor options. If you're talking about opportunity, it's the one that makes sense, right?
I think it will be the case next year as well with World Cross in January. That will really kind of seal the deal and get the cross season over and done with a little bit earlier. Yeah, and obviously there will be the regional races, Southern Cross and National Cross and stuff. But yeah, for the real pointy end of the rankings, I think that'll be all they run for. And again, you talk about seasons. The road season is a legit season now, like competing on the roads. Like, we're going to see a load of athletes compete in February on the roads over the 5K. There's that Monaco one, there's Almar. There's podiums in March as well. And then it's a case of getting ready for the track, right? So that's where we're at.
Yeah, for sure. But look, apart from that, not too much going down in the next week or so. We've got, talking to the NCAA, we've got George Cootie on the podcast next weekend. So we sat down with him a couple of weeks ago to chat about that brilliant NCAA performance, and of course his brilliant European cross-country performance as well. And just the type of training he's been doing at Virginia Tech since he moved over to Ben Thomas.
Yeah, interesting story as well. Even the way that he sparked up that relationship with Ben Thomas and managed to get into Virginia Tech. He was sending Ben Thomas videos of him running, and Ben Thomas had to kind of believe that he could turn him into the athlete he is quickly becoming, and the level I think he wants to take him to. So yeah, we get another insight into Ben Thomas, but we also get a much, much deeper insight into who George Cootie is and where he wants to go. And we're in a new Olympic cycle now, so it's very easy to look at people like him and think, geez, 4 years is a long time. Are people like Whiteman and Kurz, are they still going to be performing right at the top level? You predict yes, but if they're not, you are going to start to look at people like Cootie and guys like that to sort of come through. And just because of his setup, I think easier to go, well, he's working with a coach who's developed an Olympic champion from the age of, Cole Hawker went to Oregon at like 18, right? Yeah. So, Cootie's similar age. What can he do in the next 4 years? Funnily enough, I watched back the bloody Cole Hawker and Cooper Tier NCAAs in, it must have been 2021, was it? Or 2020, like the COVID NCAAs? I think it was 2021. And it is.
Yeah, and he went on to Tokyo, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, that was it, yeah.
Yeah, Hawker did, yeah.
And the kick, like in the 3000, like 746, he won it in, and the kick he had. Yeah, so if you want to kind of trip down memory lane, go watch that NCAA's Hawker and Tier just in their bright Oregon colors, just absolutely destroying things. Yeah, it was a good watch.
Yeah, I still think of that as their prime. I know it's not, but you watch them back and you're like, oh, they're not this good anymore. But obviously,
Yeah.
different level.
Honestly, yeah, the kick where they would just drop like 25 all the time at the end of the 2000s stuff. It was filth, utter filth. So, but yeah, no, we'll get into this Cootie pod. Well, we won't get into it. That'll be Sunday's podcast, won't it? But enjoy that one. And I guess just a little bit more news. Obviously, I'm sure everyone's seen Grecia signs a deal with Kip Run, rumored to be. I mean, I've heard so many different ballpark figures, man. Like 600K a year, €1 million a year. Like, let's just put it down. Grecia signed with Kip Run, and it's a big money deal. And actually, on that, mate, I do feel like that drives Kip Run forward. Like, what they'd been lacking is Kip Run, for me, felt a little bit like the MLS. Like, they were signing people like Paul Chilima and stuff who were very much at the end of their career, or they were signing like these sort of up and comers who hadn't really made a name for themselves. No disrespect to the Wheelers and Abby Donnelly and Kate Agford and stuff. All these people are going to make a name for themselves, and they're already proving how good they are and why they're worthy of a Kip Run contract. But they just felt a bit like that. So I think as fans, or like as runners even, we still weren't like being pushed to like go try their shoes or go buy their kit, which is what Kip Run want, mate. But now you're like, bloody hell, if Grecia's wearing this stuff and he's this good, maybe it is worth trying their super shoe, because I still haven't met anyone who's tried a Kip Run super shoe who isn't sponsored by Kip Run. Have you?
Yeah, and they're cheap, right? They're
Mate,
pretty.
they're so affordable. I don't know what if people are sleeping on this brand, because I think their super shoes like 130 quid or something. Sorry, 140 quid. Maybe don't quote me on that, but it's like just was 100 quid cheaper than all the other super shoes on the market. 80 quid cheaper. And then if you find them in a cheeky sale in Decathlon.
It's the risk factor though, right? Isn't it? I always think it's unless for most people, right? Obviously we've been in a fortunate position where sports shoes have allowed us to try a load of different shoes, right?
Yes.
But if you're parting with, if shoes are full price and you're parting with your cash and you have no discounts at any different brands, or you haven't managed to like try your mate's Adios Pro or whatever, you just buy Nike, right? That's everyone's mentality. And then if they're fortunate enough to then go and try someone else's and they realize, oh, actually, no, that is better, or I do prefer this, then you start kind of branching out a bit. But I do think everyone still has that. Just because they made the first one, they still have that hold over the consumers.
Yeah, and they still
it used to be, but I think from Breaking 2 and the original 4%, I think they still have that market hold of it.
And they still work with the best athletes in the game, don't they, really? I think they got like Jakob, and you think Almgren's at the front of that field and goes around 26:53, like, and wins it. So I think everyone's always got that relationship, but if you can try more, and I guess the beauty with Decathlon as well is they've got lots of stores around. You could probably go in and try them, and big stores you probably ping some strides up and down the warehouse. But no, I thought that was a big move from Kip Run. That was quite an aggressive move, and I think if they can sign a few more athletes like him, and so we can actually see that Kip Run vest regular on, let's be honest, on like the world scene, so like the in Diamond League races and stuff. I think that's what they want, not just in these kind of low key. Not that Valencia is low key, but it is a road race, and as much as there is eyeballs, there's not as much eyeballs on it. It's like Diamond Leagues and Grand Slam and world champs and stuff. Yeah,
for sure. Like maybe even they'll start making some national kits and who knows what, So
particularly, they have the most money, don't they? I think they're bud like can't remember like what their revenue is. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
more sponsor news. Sessman over to ASICS. He's been with Adidas since that London Marathon breakout where he kind of stole all the stories. So I presume good move for him. I don't know the ins and outs or anything like that, but I guess from one massive company in running to another massive company in running.
I
can't imagine things being
great. And a company who probably does have a little bit more of a road focus. From what I know about ASICS as well, is like they love the roads. There's good bonuses for half marathons, for marathons, and performing at these major marathons. They're really keen on that and exposing their athletes at these large big city races. So I think that move makes sense, but also more excitingly for me is the fact that I think he seems like he's committing to another Olympic cycle and really going to push for LA, because I had a few conversations with him in the summer, and I think it's always hard for athletes. You put in so much sacrifice. He's had a baby, and I think they start to sort of debate whether they want to do it all again. But he's in PB form right now, so makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's all well and good while you're running well, right? And say you hadn't been training as well, then yeah, it's a good time to stop, right? You don't want to go halfway through an Olympic cycle. So
he's close though. You know, you're looking at it, you're like he could go and run 2.6. He's got a better chance of running 2.6 than a lot of people, because he's already been there and he's got so much experience now in the marathon. He knows what it takes to qualify. He knows he's done a lot of different marathons, different races. You know, you think he's been to Valencia, he's been to Seville, he's done London, he's done the Olympics. Like he's got so much experience, and I think he can if he can fine tune that, I think he could be in a great position to go to LA. And with the marathon as well, it's not. I think it's because obviously when the selection window opens, it's almost like actually you've only got 3 years really.
Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of people who are thinking about LA is like, well, they're going to be debuting in 2025, 2026 anyway, because in 2027 is when they need to really back end of that be popping a big performance. So they've got 2.5 years really.
Yeah. And if you plan it right, you can try and pop one as soon as that window opens, and then you give yourself a chance to have another shot as well if you need it, or if you need to cement your place or whatever it is. So yeah, long-term planning absolutely key, like not just in the marathon, but I think it's underlooked how much athletes need to kind of plan long-term, even like to make a 59, right? It goes under the radar. And I think probably a lot of the time it's because the coaches are doing that for athletes. So like we speak to athletes, don't we? And sometimes they don't really talk about that process, but their coach is probably doing that for them behind the scenes without them even realizing.
Yeah, and more than ever in the next few years, because if world ranking points do again have a higher weighting and people are boxing off standards, and it's you know, British athletics come out with what you've got to do in order to put yourself in a good position with world ranking points, you need to have had a good back end of that previous year. You know, from sort of July to September, you could run some performances which would put you in good stead going into the next year and bump you up that road to whatever the championship is. So I think even more so, yeah, planning development and training, but also you got to start planning your races and where you're going to go and where you're going to be.
Yeah, for sure. But look, mate, that pretty much wraps us up on Valencia and all the work over the weekend. We'll be back obviously with George Cootie next weekend for you guys. And then I'm sure a little bonus episode like this one midweek as well to catch up on everything that does go down in Sheffield and across the world. But thanks for listening as always. We'll catch you very soon.